right. Yes. This is the Bendito show. Welcome once again to everybody who's tuning in live and watching and is with us Mondays and Thursdays at 9:09 p.m. What's up to y'all? This is episode 17. Man, it's crazy, bro. 17 times we've done this. Can you
17
believe it?
times. 17 times and counting.
Yes, that's right. And
We should start planning for episode 100. Like there's a big celebration or something at episode 100.
episode 100, man, must be wild, bro. Wild. Hopefully in a remote location that's not Toronto. Maybe we do something wild. I don't know.
At the beach or something, yeah.
Yeah. But yes, we welcome you all. We always love to have great, community, great conversation with y'all. So if you're watching this afterwards, that's cool too. But if you can catch us live, that's even better. In fact, we have a poll right now, Abraham. I'll ask you, if you had to stare at something, man, for 24 hours, what would it be?
Like something or someone. Something or someone.
I don't know. Whatever comes to your mind.
If I had to stare at someone for 24 hours, I would stare at my wife. And if I had to stare at something for 24 hours, I want to say the Bible. But I cannot say the Bible. It would be the TV. Like I want to say the Bible because I wish I could spend 24 hours reading the Bible. But I don't know if I can. But I can definitely watch TV for 24 hours. And I know coming from me, that sounds crazy because I'm radical about the gospel. But I can, I read my Bible in chunks and I study the Bible in chunks. But for 24 hours reading the Bible is that would be like a sacrifice.
What about if it's something? What if it's something completely static? So you can't control like much. Like for example, like you could be sitting in front, like on a beach, for 24 hours. You just have to be staring at that, or you have to, stare at a painting.
But that's not static. Okay, the beach is not static because the waves move, so you could distract yourself.
That's true.
Now, if I had to stare at a painting for 24 hours. I'm gonna go with a painting of my wife.
Man, I wish I had that DJ style. That's a good one, man. That's a good one.
What else you gonna stare at for 24 hours?
Yeah, that's tough.
But let's see what people online say. So
let us know. Let us know, man. If you had to stare at something for 24 hours, what would it be? Even if it wasn't static, like I feel like people would still get tired of Netflix as well. Like if you're watching like a movie or something like that, maybe having to watch like one of those long series, movie series like Avengers. Like if you want to watch like from movie number 1 to the end. In fact, I don't even think 24 hours will give it, is enough. But man, for example, one of my favorite movies of all time is Lord of the Rings. It's completely fictional, crazy fantasy world, but I love it. I actually recently watched it during the pandemic, and I like watching the extended version of it, which is, one of them is literally 4 hours long. Right. So, but you can't do it. Like it's so tough to sit down and watch through the whole thing. And it's like, oh my goodness. Maybe because I had already watched it, it's tougher, but
it's hard. And then you gotta pause. Like you gotta pause to go to the washroom and all that. Like it's hard to do anything for such a long time straight.
24 hours. Yeah. Well, listen, folks, we like to talk about what is in the news. Before we hit it, I got to let y'all know that today we're going to be talking about the lust of the eyes, and I think there's a lot of things there that we can hit. So make sure, you stay tuned in, share this link if you can with people, because it's going to be a good conversation. I got something here, in terms of news, there's some interesting things happening obviously around the world. But I thought it was super interesting. If you guys follow us on Instagram, which you definitely should, there's a study that came out recently, actually at the end of the month, which says by the Barna Group that Black Christians, right, they find themselves limited to multiracial churches. And again, I said this in the comments, this study is obviously not representative of every single Black person out there or any person of color. But this is one of the quotes that they came out in terms of their research. It says attendees of color joining diverse worship environments might need to give up their own traditions, influence, or preferences. And it's a very interesting article. If you guys just search up the Barna Group,
so when I saw it, I thought, well, then that means the congregation that they're going to is not so diverse.
So, that's the thing, because apparently it is. It's just that it takes on more, it seems to always lean on the more white traditions.
Right. So that means it's not so diverse.
No, because the study is actually super interesting. Like, for example, it would say, like, in a church where there is, let's say, a good percentage, let's say 30% of, Black Christians, the whites in that congregation are more open and accepting of all the struggles that Blacks have gone through, of all the racism that exists, of all the justice and equality that's needed. Like, they're very much outwards coming towards that, and they're saying we need to support, the Black people, and so, like, there is that diversity in, at least, their, in what they're saying. But when it comes to the traditions and, like, the things
they're
that they
talking about
do,
the worship experience, right?
I
Isn't
think,
that what they're talking about?
I think the
The
worship
worship experience
experience,
at the
like
church.
the kind of events and activities that you may
Yeah.
see, it's still, more of the, non-Black, more just white American tradition. And so I thought that was interesting because we've been talking about church culture here and there, and we've had some interesting conversations. If you haven't watched the video with Jonathan, watch it. But
there's some people that have gone to the extent to say that, when it comes to church, people just shouldn't mix. And I don't agree with that. But what I'm saying is that, sometimes you, as a Black person, you go to a church and, like, I grew up in a Latino church, so it's not the same as a Black Baptist church. It's not the same. But I've had a lot of experience in a Black Baptist church. So, or, any Pentecostal Black churches. And, the noise and the clapping and the praise breaks and all that stuff doesn't happen in multicultural churches. So that's what I think they're talking about. They have to give that up. Like, if you ever preach at a Black church, Black people scream at the preacher.
It's different, man. It's totally different. And, like, and this is where, I don't want to say that there's some right or wrong ways of doing things, but there might be a right or wrong church for you. Can we say that?
Yeah.
Like,
I've lived that before.
But it's a tricky subject, right? Because, how do we determine kind of, what's right or wrong? Like, are we going to be extra sensitive?
Right. No, when you go to the church, like, when you go to the church, right? What to expect. Like, when you go to the church, we visited a church before Emmanuel, long time ago. And, there was a song, and, my wife was touched and she was praising, and somebody came and asked her if she's feeling okay. Like, and we knew at that point that this is not for us, right? Like, just, what are you guys doing here? Like, the worship band is playing, nobody's lifting their hands, nobody's eyes is closed, nobody's crying, like, what's happening in this church? So it was like this thing. So, and that's what, that's when So it's not wrong to say this church is not right for me. I'm going to find somewhere else to praise God. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting conversation. I think we're going to have more about it, in terms of church culture, because, again, coming from maybe because, you hate to see it, but, in terms of people jumping churches, and after some time, you don't even know if they go to a church. Like that it becomes to a point where they feel like they don't even belong at any church. And it's just like, well, is the problem the church or is the problem you? Right.
You can't do that. Like, I don't
that's because that. What's interesting too? I think that, the vision of churches, I've been kind of looking at that as well, because I want us to have a conversation one of these days on mega churches, and if it's something that we should be pursuing, to try to grow and be, and what should our vision be like? Because it's interesting, maybe some of the bigger ones out there, I'm just kind of looking into maybe what their main pastor says and stuff like that. Their vision could be, we're just here to kind of, create new believers, and that's what we want to do. So it's not so much for a believer to stay at that church. Like, their whole vision is like, no, like, go out there and be the church, and if go congregate to another church if you have to. But what we're trying to do here is literally have experiences for people who've never, come to Christ. But then I kind of challenge me, like, but that's not the church. The church
the model of the church is to make disciples, right? It's not just to get people to be saved and baptized and get out.
Exactly.
The model of the church is to make disciples. Jesus said, "Go out and teach them all things that I have taught you, and then come back." But I don't see the mega churches I haven't seen a mega church example in the Bible. Maybe there is one. There probably is one in the Old Testament.
And folks, this isn't new. Like, if you go to theological seminaries, this is being discussed a lot.
That's right.
Like, this is not something that is just readily, let's go for it. because again, we don't see that kind of biblical example. And in fact, that's what's been kind of the blessing of the pandemic, is that we've kind of returned to more smaller, and
that's right.
More smaller groups, which is kind of closer to what the church
That's right.
was initially. Anyway, something else in the news, which I think is super interesting. We got some private messages from it. Is that the CDC is endorsing indoor worship for those that are vaccinated. Okay, so gathering at full capacity is now listed among safe activities for people who have gotten the COVID-19 shot. So I think this is good, but at the same time, it may worry some in thinking that, well, if you're not vaccinated, would you not not be allowed to go to church? And so I think that is where it can get a little bit tricky, because it's now you're controlling the people that can get that kind of.
It will never get to that, because there are a lot of religions that don't vaccinate at all. So I don't think it will ever get to that. I don't think so. It might, because Christians, we vaccinate. Well, some Christians vaccinate, others don't. But I don't think it's going to get to that point where people say, "Oh, you don't. If you don't have vaccinated."
So somebody sent a message and they said, So they said vaccines are not mandatory, but you won't have freedom if you don't get the shot. Right? Like, so it's an interesting dynamic there.
I'm expecting that you wouldn't be able to fly unless you have the vaccine. I'm expecting that. Yeah. They're already talking about vaccine passports, right? I'm expecting that you wouldn't be able to enter certain supermarkets and certain stores if you're not vaccinated, right? And people say, "Oh, that's a practice for the mark of the beast and all that other stuff," because that's what the mark of the beast is.
But it's true. It's crazy, people believe it. People believe it. But hey, let us know in the comments. Like, are you for this? Are you against this? What are your thoughts? I think it's good.
If you got the vaccine, I just think that if you didn't get the vaccine and you go to the church, it's on you. If you get COVID-19, it's on you.
But
I believe that. You should be congregating right now.
I think it's scary when it does become this mandatory thing, because we really got to remember that not everybody has the same access. Even when I'm talking about people who want to get the vaccine and maybe they don't have papers, they don't have a health card, they don't have any of that stuff, like, they have access to it? So there's a lot of interesting questions there.
You got to clarify that. So you don't need papers to get the vaccine. All you need is ID. And now in Ontario, they
where do you get that ID?
No, you get it. No, okay. So for immigrants out there listening, or people who have immigrants friends, if you're an immigrant and you don't have papers, you can go to any service Ontario and get an ID with your local country's passport. It's called an Ontario ID.
But that's the thing. What if they don't want to? Because there are scenarios where they don't want to.
Do what?
They don't want to be known by the government where their location is. Like, there's a lot of very unique situations.
But I don't know.
I know a lot of course. I took a course on this in criminology and political science, and man, like this idea.
I know a lot of immigrants. I know a lot of immigrants who don't have papers who have it. They don't ask you no questions. They just give you the ID so that you can get certain services. And I don't even think you need an ID for this vaccination unless you are saying that you want to get vaccinated based on being part of the hot zone. But if you're willing to wait till the right time, I don't think you need an ID. So that's what if the Ford government has done one thing right, is to get the vaccine or to get tested, you don't need to have papers. That's
good to know. That's good to know. Continuing here with some of the news. I mean, is it really Christian news? It isn't. But I thought this was super interesting because it's trending right now. It literally says national news on Twitter, and it's that Bill and Melinda Gates, if y'all know who they are, I mean, the founder of Microsoft, one of the most richest couples in the
richest.
Oh yeah, I mean,
they're the richest. They're the richest in the world right now.
Well, for now, before until
it goes up and down with the Bezos, because Bezos already got divorced, so he lost a good share, right?
So these guys are getting divorced, right? And it's making the news, and they released this statement. And I just found that a little interesting. I'll go ahead and read it here. It says, after a great deal of thought and a lot of work on our relationship, we have made the decision to end our marriage. Over the last 27 years, we have raised 3 incredible children and built a foundation and all these things. We continue to share a belief in that mission. But here it says, but we no longer believe we can grow together as a couple in the next phase of our lives. And, I mean, it's they're literally asking for space and privacy. We're not going to obviously, knock on their door. I mean, if we can have an interview with them, I'd love that. But we definitely got to talk about the fact that, they have a conversation. And like, I don't know if this is just kind of a trend where, you can just have a conversation with somebody and they're just saying, you know what, in the next phase of my life, I think I'd rather be with somebody else. Like
but that's what they're saying. But divorce doesn't happen like that. Like, I've never been divorced, but I've seen enough cases where there's always something else. But this is a public statement, right? Like, they don't care. They're not gonna really say what happened. They're not gonna say, like, if Bill had a party with a whole bunch of women and she caught him, they're not gonna say that. Like, if she wants,
but Bill,
like,
they've been together
she
for
wasn't
27 years though.
Yeah,
right?
They're not
27 years. They're the richest.
Right.
Like, these guys, like, they don't have any money. Like, they can literally go out there and probably buy.
Yeah, but then they're not going to say. Remember, the devil is after destroying families, whether they're poor or they have money or they're in between. Like, they're not going to really say what happened. They're going to give a public statement that appeases the people. So they're saying, we're not going to go to that. Now, what you're saying is, people are going to use this as an example now moving forward and say, well, you know what? You know what? Help me grow.
Because it's interesting because, like, they both posted this. Like, I'm sure they have a social media manager and stuff like that.
Of course they do.
But it's interesting because in some other divorces, like, you see, like, the guy posts one thing, the girl posts another thing. And this one, it's like, we worked together and we came down to the conclusion to just go our separate ways.
But we don't even know what these people could have been separated for 15 years. Like, we don't know what's happening.
It's true. But like, let's say it was really like it was a friendly, kind of split. What do we say about those things? Because like, I feel that something that may even seem like a good choice. Because in this case, like, they're really just making it seem like, hey, we're just making the best choice that we can for our lives.
That's crazy. That's
crazy. I mean, it's crazy for us because we're Christian, and this is the thing that even as we were talking about any other topics, that we're not our own, right? Like,
of course,
it's a very different kind of thought process when we're making decisions. But I just wanted to bring that up because I don't know, it just kind of provokes.
I don't see a Christian person saying, "I'm going to make a conscious decision that we can't be together anymore." Listen, my philosophy is the following: young people who are married, people who are planning to get married, people who've been married a long time.
Yeah.
This is my philosophy. I'm not saying this is my philosophy. As long as there's been no adultery, everything else could be fixed.
Yeah.
I don't see me getting past adultery. Like, I don't see that. Like, if somebody ever comes to me for advice and they say, "Oh, my husband cheated on me, my wife cheated on me, I want to leave them," I cannot make a case for them to stay. I will try. Like, how old are your kids? Is this something you want to try? But inside of me, my limit is adultery. Everything else could be fixed. But I've heard from older people who I deem to be wiser than I am that say to me, you cannot say that unless you have already experienced it, because there's been a lot of couples where adultery has happened and the forgiveness has been there and restoration has been there.
Yeah.
So nothing is impossible for God. What I'm saying is,
what I'm
trying to say is that everything else,
we can definitely talk about it.
That's a topic. Everything else you can fix. Everything else can be fixed.
Yeah. Listen, folks, if you live in Canada, over the next week, you are going to get something in the mail, which is the Canadian census. And it happens, I believe, every 5 years. And it's an interesting survey because it really gets to tell, the government kind of what is going on. And if you are into data, you know that data drives a lot of initiatives. It drives basically any kind of thing that you see in the future is because they take it out of the census and they say, you know what? There's this percentage of people who need this and that. And you know what? I am very much interested to see what kind of the questions that are related to the faith look like. So I'm definitely going to fill it out. I haven't gotten anything in the mail yet, but I'm curious to see what kind of questions are going to be on the census. Like, can they go as deep as saying, okay, what faith do you belong? Let's say Christian. How often are you congregating? I wonder how
they're not gonna have you. Like, you don't remember the last one? The last one was what your religious beliefs, and then they had Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, and all that, and then they had other at the bottom. That's
there you go. So Diego said that he got his today. I don't know if he's done it yet, but I don't know. I've seen like the American ones then. And maybe it's a little bit different where it does get a little bit more in depth, and so, and maybe it's not congregate. Maybe they use some other words of like, how involved are you? Maybe like put a percentage or something, but I would love to see that. And I would love to I wonder how genuine people will answer to this, right? Like, if you haven't been congregating, are you going to say, are you 100% a Christian? Are you a 50% Christian? Like, those were just thoughts that were kind of going through my mind.
those senses people usually fill out like I'm a lot interested in the part with schools because that provides funding to the schools in my area where my kids go. But and the parts also with race, like it's always confusing because they're like, are you Hispanic or black? Like I'm both. So click one. I just click Hispanic, black, half, whatever. So I mean, it's good to fill it out. Like the people out there, it's good to fill out a sense. So the data that comes out of it is really good.
Bro, I was just checking out some Christian memes because I wanted to show one. I mean, I don't know why this one made me laugh, but maybe I think we're gonna be like this once the church opens up. Creepy church huggers seeing a newcomer walk through the door, and the comment is, "What up? Let me lay your hands in prayer." I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny, but if you guys have something funny too, y'all share it with us. I know sometimes we get some messages there. But you know what? I also like seeing, because some memes, like we've seen in the past, they kind of go a little too far, and it's so interesting seeing like the comments, how people kind of go at each other. I don't know.
Yeah, very interesting. For Thursday, check out the new Redimido Bachata. He brought out something. I want to know, get your take on it. On Thursday, we're going to talk about it. If you're listening to us, check out the new Bachata. It came out last weekend, so check out the new Bachata for Redimido. Like I'm so on the fence with this. We got to talk about this video, and then you'll check it out for Thursday.
Oh man, I almost want to give a live reaction, man. What's it called?
I don't even know.
Too long though.
It's like 4 minutes. I don't like it. So check it out for Thursday. We'll talk about it. It's
oh man, now I'm curious now. I think I see it now. I see it.
It's past the line for me, but they say I'm old, but
Yeah. It's super interesting, guys. When you see the comments, though, you see a lot of perspectives of people kind of giving their thoughts. Well, anyway, folks, today we want to talk about something super interesting, and it is the lust of the eyes. The lust of the eyes is it's important to define, because I feel like we can get it maybe confused with different things. But let's take a look at what Scripture says. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my the word here. We're gonna be looking at 1 John 2:15-18. It's just to get an idea, right, brother? Just to kind of see what exactly Scripture tells us. And it says this: do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, right? And here comes the divisions: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. I'm going to leave it there because I think it's quite clear. But Abraham, first question I got for you here. This is saying everything in the world, and then it gives us three little, kind of separations here. What's the difference here between lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes?
So basically, to me, the explanation that I have for this verse is that the lust of the flesh is basically talking about sexual immorality. Right? Lust of the flesh, the lust of the flesh, anything that says flesh is something that it is either sexual or something that you could eat, like gluttony, like eating a lot of food and just lusting after food. But it's like physical pleasure. Lust of the flesh is physical pleasure, whether it be from pain or from sexual activity or whatever it is. That is the lust of the flesh. Lust of the flesh. The lust of the eyes is when everything you see you want for you. Everything you see, not talking about like women or whatever. Like you see somebody with a nice car, they can't have it. You need to have it. You see somebody like, I don't know how many times I've seen somebody else say, where'd you get those shoes? I would like to buy a pair. Like, and I'm not saying that that's lust. I'm saying that there are some people that everything they see that somebody else has, they want it, and they want to be rich. They want the possession. They have this desire, uncontrollable lust.
Question for you. Do you think every person struggles with this?
No, not everybody. No.
Now, so you're saying that, because it's interesting, because it's talking about the lust of the eyes. And all of us who have the blessing of having both of our eyes and some good vision, we have that opportunity to fall into kind of this category. So are you saying that everybody, because honestly, for me, I think I find it interesting the way the Bible is so descriptive, and it's saying the lust of the eyes. It's not necessarily saying the lust of those who see in this kind of regard, but it's literally saying, listen, the eyes that you have, that we all have, this is the danger with it. right?
Right,
If you're thinking only through your eyes, if you're trying to live life only through your eyes, like you can fall under this category. So for me, I'm thinking anybody with two eyes can fall.
Anybody can fall. No, anybody can. Like we can all fall into any temptation. Like anybody who says I can resist this all day, I would say, I would doubt them. But we can all fall. But is everybody falling into this? Like, is this a temptation for everybody? I would say no. Some people, like, the eyes are not, like, for the eyes are not. So, I've never been like ambitious towards, like, I gotta have this, or I see somebody with a nice car. God bless them. I see, I want nice cars too, but I'm not gonna be like lusting after somebody else's thing because I saw it.
I get it, but I think the point I'm trying to make is that the temptation can come to you and you can overcome it, and maybe some people, don't have that issue to overcome it. But I find it interesting that it will come your way because, as we're looking at the definition,
the temptation came to Jesus.
Exactly. As we're looking at the definition of the lust of the eyes, it is the sinful desire to possess what we see or to have those things which have visual appeal. Right. Okay. If y'all are listening right now, you're watching live, we have a good group. Y'all just let, drop in the comments. What do you think that could be? Right. Because the main one is, women, men, and cars. Right. Like, it's like, that's what it is. Well, for guys, it's women and cars, like that's like you see it. For women, maybe it's the jewelry, but I don't want to give the list. I want people to drop, in the comments, give us some sort of ideas of what falls under this definition, right? Sinful desire to possess what we see or to have things which have visual appeal. All right, Abraham, you mentioned it already that Jesus himself was tempted. Okay, he was tempted by Satan, right? And
through
basically,
the eyes specifically. Through the eyes specifically.
Through the eyes, right? Because he showed him all the kingdoms of the world and its splendor.
That's right.
And he said, listen, I can give you all of those things, right? You also see it in Genesis 3 because the serpent said, as he was tricking Eve, it says that it was pleasant to her eyes. That's kind of, what he was presenting. So, this is definitely a temptation that is out there. It's active.
It can come to everybody.
It can come to anybody. The prime example that I have here is King David. I'm gonna go ahead and actually I'm gonna put 2 Samuel here.
King David messed up. His eyes got him in trouble.
Look what scripture says here. This dude was just living life, right? One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. Okay, from the roof, he saw. There he goes.
That's right. Yeah.
He saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful.
There it is.
Man, this verse right here, I think this is it's a tricky one because
how is that tricky? That's
I'll
clear.
I'll tell you why it's tricky. Because what's the problem here? Is the problem that he saw the woman? Is the problem that the woman was beautiful? Because some people think that. I don't know why. That's how they victimize
people. It says it right
people.
there. She was beautiful.
But
it says it right there.
What is the problem that happened? Is the problem only that he acted on it, or is part of the problem that he saw it? Talk to me through this because I think this is an interesting kind of
looking and seeing is two different things. Okay, looking and seeing is
what
two
you
different
mean?
Because if you look and it cross your eyes, that's it, right? Like so, you just cross your eyes. Now, okay, so you're walking down the street and you see something.
Yeah.
And you just that right?
Bruh, it reminds me about I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Brandon and I were downtown having some chicken burgers, and we had never been to this place. It's called PG Clucks. It's literally just a shop outside. And as we're having our burgers, it looks like a parade literally was coming. And I gotta be honest, y'all, half the people in that parade were butt naked. They were just naked. And brother and I were just there. They were just eating our burgers. And you there's no place to sit down. There's no place to be. It's just even as you're looking at your burger, you're seeing people right in front of you.
Well, that's the thing. So, but you're not
Toronto.
You're not seeing it. I guess Diego said the problem is that he acted upon it. So the problem wasn't that he saw. Like for him, in this case, David's case, right? Let's be honest. In David's case, because at that time they had they had converted the law into something God didn't want, where he was allowed to have multiple women. So he saw the woman as she was bathing, right? And I think we have to look at the origin of that word saw in the original language, because I think he didn't just see her. I think he observed, right? Because she was bathing and she was very beautiful. She was bathing. He observed, right? So then he asked, who is this woman? And they told him, that's Uriah's wife. At that point, he should have let that go. But he let what his eyes saw convince him that he needed to have this woman. And that's where the problem is. So I agree with Diego there. Like, the problem is he acted. Now, for us in this day and age, if you're married, you shouldn't be observing anything. You shouldn't be observing. And that's not just for women if you're married. But if you're observing somebody's possession that much, that's one of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's possession. Right? That's one of the 10 commandments. And that's, if you're observing, you're looking so deeply that you want this thing so bad, because the other person has it, or because you saw it on TV and you become like this obsessed with one of these things, that is a sin. That is a sin. You can't do that.
Yeah, and that's why I think it becomes tricky, because we live in a very different society than David. And this is where I'm going. I mean, you can see Marcus' comment, but this is where I'm actually going with this, is that, maybe, back then you really had to be, I guess, I don't want to say super intentional. The thing is, I feel like today we consume so much media, so much things from this world, that it doesn't compare, I believe, to what we were consuming even 10 years ago, even 15 or 20 years ago. Like today, just today alone, you guys have probably all seen easily 1,000 posts. Easily. You guys have all seen 1,000 posts today from 1,000 different people, from 1,000 maybe different backgrounds. And there's a lot of richness to that, right? There's a lot of beauty in that.
It depends on what you follow. It all depends on what you follow.
And I think there's a lot of good in that, but I also think there's a lot of danger in that. Because as we are observing, as we are seeing these things, and this is where maybe it becomes a little bit difficult to know, like, well, am I observing? Am I looking? Am I examining? Am I just kind of scrolling through it? It's still kind of registering, it's still, kind of staying in our minds, right? Like, guys, I mean, doctors say it, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they'll tell you, even the fact that we swipe down and you see something refreshing, apparently it actually is like scientifical, that it actually, gets us excited. Like, we want to know what the latest news is. Like, there's so many things being played here in the background.
I get it, but you're not lusting after it. If you're like, it's like you're scrolling through the
My question is, can you unintentionally do this?
No, because listen, to lust, you have to want. You can't unintentionally lust. How you gonna unintentionally lust?
Because the eyes, man, the eyes.
No,
like
you can unintentionally see, and then you're like, oh my God, I can't unsee that. Like, right? But you can unintentionally see, but you can't unintentionally lust. In order to lust, you have to want. Like, you're looking for this.
Yeah.
Mark is saying the lust of the eyes that David experienced was preceded by something else. Yeah, it was preceded by the fact that his men were at war and his lazy behind stayed home. Yeah. He should have been at war with the men. It was preceded by that. And he was probably disconnected from God while he was just there lazy. What's a king doing taking a nap in the middle of the day? So what I'm saying is that you have to be intentional about it. Because remember, not everybody's attracted to the same things. Right? So some people just lust after food because I mean, I've said it before that I watched this show called 600 Pound Life, and it's some huge people, and they eat. It is motivation to, like, go for a run or something, because these people eat, like, this dude eat like 9 cheeseburgers or something like that. Like, how you eat 9 cheeseburgers? 10 Big Macs with supersized fries and all that. How you eat 4 pizzas by yourself? 4 extra large, Papa John's pizza full of toppings. Like, how you eat that? Like, they eat like crazy. So those people have a problem with the lust of the eyes in terms of food. You can have lust of the eyes in terms of wanting to have. Those dudes on Wall Street. Like, I've met people that are on Bay Street downtown that they work in these corporations, and investment bankers, and like the way that they behave, it's almost disgusting. Like, to go to meetings with these guys or to go to lunch with them. It is disgusting to me, because all they talk is about what they could do and what they compare and what they want. It's bad. It's
so horrible. Okay. So if we can't unintentionally, lust for something,
I don't think you can.
Okay, but is it possible to set up the wrong habits in your life that lead you to that lust? Because here's the thing, because, I think we talked about it before in terms of cleaning up your social media, in terms of cleaning up the things that are around you. Because we literally, like, you shouldn't be saying yes to everything. Like, you can't be following everything. Like, no matter how brave, no matter how strong you think you are, these are things that they're little by little going to, eat up your mind. That's literally it, especially when it's battling, verses in the Bible, when it's battling your study time with God, when it's battling your prayer time, like, it's like that is difficult, and so that's kind of where I'm going to, is that I don't know how to explain it, but I think I could say is that if you aren't intentional, then you will unintentionally fall. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it's not that you unintentionally fall. It's because you're straying away. You don't realize how far you are from God. And then you get a temptation and you fall and realize how low you were. Because remember when they told David the sin he committed? They told him in a parable. Nathan told him in a parable. And he was like, that man needs to die right now. He didn't realize what he did because he was so far away from God and so far into his sin, right? That he didn't, and he said, while I hate my sin, my bones inside of me were crushing me, right? They were getting old. So you can unintentionally stray away. And by unintentional, I mean you stop reading the Bible, you stop praying, and you put yourself in a position where you can, where you get to the lust of it. Then you see something and you're attracted to it because, there's a process. There's a process. Like in the book of James, it speaks of the process. It says, everyone is tempted based on their own desires, right?
Yeah.
And then the desire, produces the temptation. The temptation produces the thought, and then the thought produces the sin, and the sin produces the death. So there's a process to it. So you can rebuke the desire when the desire comes, but you have to be ready to rebuke the desire. Yeah. If you entertain the desire, you're going to fall.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like what Marcus is saying there in terms of practicing the fruit of the Spirit, self-control. You know what the thing is, and I guess it's maybe a way of, teaching this. I've always kind of leaned, especially with maybe because I'm always speaking with like the youth and young adults. I know some would say that I usually say this is that we ought to never think too much of ourselves, right? And I even popped up this verse that I use, Romans 12:3, for by the grace given me, I say to everyone, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment. And honestly, I try to take that and also apply it to the battles that I face, because I need to understand that, I can fall, and there needs to be, I think, that understanding because, Diego also said there in the comments, the problem is that he acted. But, one of the problems that I see today is that when we think so highly of ourselves, we're okay with having all of these models on our Instagram, right? These IG models, and we're following them. We're okay to following all of these, material kind of things that just promote, get all these things, get. Yeah. And we don't think it's going to impact us. And I don't know, maybe I think too lowly of myself. Maybe I need to think a little bit higher. But for me, it's just like, wow, like, I don't know. I feel like it will consume me. Like I feel like I am putting myself at a risk when I am constantly seeing, these kind of things that can lead me down a wrong path. Yeah, and so, I don't want to stay there too long. I really want to get to some of the things that we struggle with, right? I want to move beyond, in terms of, the women and the men.
We know what the definition is.
Yeah, like we know the battle with the women and the men. Like we know that, for example, especially when somebody's already in a relationship or when somebody's already married, right, that kind of coveting is extremely, extremely dangerous, right? And so, that one is you're playing not look, just.
Some people say they can look and move away, but you don't. If it comes in your eyesight, that's fine. But why you looking? Like, why do you don't look? Because if you play with it, you play with fire, you're gonna get burned. This is one of the things that the Bible literally says flee away from. Yeah. Flee from youthful passions. Like it says flee from sexual immorality. Like that's one of the things. Now there's a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm pretty sure that
So this is where I wanted to get to, because again, I want to move away from the
lust of the flip.
From the women, from the men. Now the things of this world is a very, very interesting thing.
That's right.
Because we get so attached to it. But look at what Proverbs 23:5 it says. When your eyes light on it, it is gone. For suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven. Right. And I know that's I don't know if I can maybe find another version. I know some of y'all love reading the Message, which is just paraphrased kind of ways. But it's look at what it says here. Riches disappear in the blink of an eye. Wealth sprouts wings and flies off into the wild blue yonder.
That's right.
In other words, it may look good, right? And there's just some, and I feel like somebody got to testify with me in the comments. It ain't the same sometimes once you got it. Like it ain't the same. Like, once you got that PS5, once you got the latest gadget, once you have that latest phone, with all the features, at the end of the day, you're looking at yourself and say, you know what? At the end of this is just a phone. Like this is just a phone. Like at the end of the day, like all these things that we fall in love with through our eyes. And especially now with the pandemic where people are just browsing online and it's easy to just add to cart, deliver, get Amazon
it's
over here.
Easy. It's so easy.
I feel that it's very easy to fall in love with something for the potential it has, for the sparkles it kind of attracts you with. But like once you have it, you start realizing, wow, like these things, they're not really gonna, help me grow many times.
I saw this thing where this young girl was prostituting herself to get an iPhone 12, right?
Oh, and man. It was like, come on now. That's
I'm not kidding.
I'm not like shocked.
Happens.
Like that happens way more than we probably could even guess.
For iPhone?
Yeah, bro.
You give up your body
come on
for
now.
iPhone.
Oh man.
Come on.
I mean, I'm telling you, there are.
I know some people. I know some people live in poverty, but I'm gonna say it doesn't matter how poor you are. If you are raised with the right morals, you wouldn't do this type of stuff. And that's what I'm saying. You need the Holy Spirit to keep you from your eyes going astray, because people do all kinds of things for money, right? We know that. That's people do everything, like people do all kinds of things for money now, and to have, but then is what you said. The satisfaction that you get from having it is not going to be nothing. If you need something, like if you want something, like get it, but if the satisfaction of having it is not going to be what you think it is.
Look, it's right? I think
it's not going to fill you.
Look, I mean, I my secular job is in sales. Right. So, and maybe a lot of Christians, we deal with money and stuff like that.
Right.
And, in the environments I think that I've been in, money is like the number one thing that drives you. Money is everything. Right. And I'm not here trying to displace that idea. Obviously, I mean, we live in that society where money drives everything. Right. You go to the grocery store, you need money. Right. You need to go pump gas. You need money. Right. So to live in this life, you definitely need the resource of money, right? But man, there are so many examples that we see, month after month of people who have all the money in the world.
That's right.
And yet they aren't happy, and I gotta, it comes to the point where, you have to start recognizing right now, today, where your happiness is coming from.
That's
and I feel like this kind of could maybe lead us into how do we fight the lust of the eyes. Right, because brother, I mean, we're both married, right? And I'm in my 20s. You're not too far away from me. We'll keep it like that, right?
Let's keep it like that. Let's shave up all my gray hair.
But listen. Let's say in 20 years from now, we're gonna be older, right? Our wives are gonna look at us and they're gonna see that there's some younger men out there. There's some better, younger looking men out there, right?
Not mine,
I'm just saying. I'm gonna try my best to keep myself looking good.
I'm a superstar, bro.
But listen, there's always going to be somebody younger.
There's gonna be somebody better looking.
Exactly. Abs and all that stuff.
Listen,
right. But where do you find that happiness? Like, where do you find that balance?
It's not only the happiness, it's also the joy, right? The joy comes from the Holy Spirit. The happiness depends on what's happening. But you could be sad or something, but it's not the way you find the happiness. So, in terms of couples, it's the love. But, if people want to cheat, it doesn't have to be somebody who looks better or whatever. It's just, if you want to do it, there's tons of excuses. He treated me better. My husband never, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But your source of joy cannot be a thing or a person, right? Your source of joy has to come from the Holy Spirit. The joy of the Lord is my strength in order to fight all these temptations. If the joy of the Lord is not your strength, you gonna fall like a mango.
Look, and I know. I mean, man, I said I wasn't gonna go back, but I did go back to it. But I want to jump back to the money thing. Is you know what the thing is with the lust of the eyes. Sometimes I feel like people don't think that this doesn't apply to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I feel like they think this is a basic, known fact in the faith in terms of it's kind of like, we can't kill people. Like, hey, do not kill. Like, it's a given, until you're in a moment and you maybe kill somebody, and like, that's why, there's a lot. I'm telling you, like, crazy things happen. But, in fact, you know where the temptation is crazy? Theft. That's a big one because a lot of people say, yeah, of course, stealing is something, and it has to do with the lust of the eyes. It has to do with it. We say, oh, we don't steal, we don't do theft. But let me tell you, until you get the opportunity to, hey, you know what's big nowadays, right? Time theft, right? At work, time. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's right.
For y'all that are listening right now,
y'all who working from home,
time theft is legit. It's real. Right. And then you're putting up excuses to your managers sometimes saying, hey, I haven't done this and that, but you had the time. And you're stealing time.
That's right.
I'm not saying that happens all the time, guys, but I'm just trying to make sure that people who are listening in, are not just thinking that this is for somebody else.
That's right.
Because that the lust of the eyes is very much a temptation that even Jesus got, hit with, right? And that we gotta talk.
Something that's big, something that's big among the immigrant community and even the local Canadian community is income tax fraud. Like, you're going to get that return and you lie on the return. That's the lust of the eyes because you're looking at that money, right? You're looking at that money. You want that money. You're stealing. So you have to be careful when it applies. Like, you have to be careful at what you look at. Like, if you're obsessed with shoes, like I like shoes. I have a lot of shoes. I must say I have a lot of shoes and I have them in boxes. I take care of my shoes because I like shoes, right? But I'm not going to go on my way to buy some expensive. Sometimes I go to a shoe store and I say, you know what? For Boxing Day, I'm going to come by. If they have it on sale, I'll get it. If they don't, then I'm not going to get it. Like, I'm not going to spend all this money on some shoes just because, like, that doesn't make sense. So, some people like fragrances or some people like nice things. It's not a sin to have nice things.
Not at all.
The sin is that your whole life is dependent on you having nice things. And if you don't have the next nice thing, you have a problem.
And maybe people have just maybe in general we have a problem measuring that because I don't think anybody is going to come out and say, oh yes, I mean some people are going to be like I struggle with this. Like I've met somebody who says when I get paid I struggle because I use all my money and I pay and I buy. I get it. Some people can have that kind of maturity to recognize that, but I feel like there's some other people who they don't spend enough time maybe analyzing their own finances and maybe kind of taking a look, hey, maybe I'm spending too much on these on this. And so I feel like maybe a little, wake up call or maybe, hey, take a few minutes and take a look at where you've been spending your money, to see if you are being driven by the lust of our eyes, And so, Abraham, is there something else, that can maybe, that we can talk about that isn't related to, women, men, money? I have one in mind. And we recently,
it might be the same one,
and we recently had a conversation on it because I don't think we got to the sinful part of it, but I'm talking about tattoos.
Yeah, that's not the one I had in mind, but you could lust after a tattoo and be like, I want to get a tattoo. Like, I mean, my brother Alan, who was on, he said it right. He said, he has tattoos.
Yeah.
He said, you got to pray and fast a lot before you get one of these. I don't know if he got them after he was saved or before. If he's watching, he's let us know. But, he said you got to pray and fast a lot before you get one of these. But yes, that could be a lust of the flesh.
I think it can be. I think I'm gonna just leave it at that. It can be. If you haven't watched our episode last week, literally go watch it. I think it's very edifying.
It can be. But listen,
what did you have in mind?
People drinking water in a Starbucks thing and posting like my chai latte with fava beans or whatever, right? Right? They're like
Come on now, people do that.
What? People like I woke up like this, and they will get up, do the makeup, and then be like, "Oh, just waking up." Social media is one of the biggest platforms for the lust of the eyes. Everybody, like, listen, I barely post pictures of myself. I might post a video or something, a picture. Maybe I usually post a picture of the family for Christmas so that my family.
You gotta get the right angles, man. You gotta get the right angles.
But all I'm saying is that people do all kinds of crazy stuff. Just to say that they're probably living some great life or something. You know what it is? to go out and get like a bucket of sand at Home Depot and then cross your legs like this and then take a picture and say like, oh, this resort is whatever.
Nah.
People, what? Yeah, bro. You don't even know.
Come on now.
Look it up. Look, YouTube it. Like things people do for social media. YouTube. People do all kinds of things. Like, there's this one where these guys had on a box and their heads, and they had headphones like this one, and they had this thing rotating and looking out some type of window. They were looking at a screen of a scenery, and there was a dude making helicopter noises, like cruising a helicopter, and it was all alive, like they were in the living room. People I think I've seen that. Yeah, that is the lust of the eyes, and it causes you to sin because you want people to know that you're doing this and like you're making it, and dudes go turn on lights in a room and whatever and say, oh, I'm in the club making it rain, and they're just in a room. Like all these things are lust of the eyes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Amy says here, Yorkview has water fountains everywhere, but people would rather go to Starbucks and pay the 10 cents for a cup if water to walk around with a label. Exactly. That's crazy.
I tell you, they do it just to say that they're having Starbucks and they're having chai something or whatever. You're not having no chai, nothing. Is
Look, okay, so the question that I think people got to be asking themselves today is, what do you want in this life? And I'm actually not talking about the spiritual things, because I want to take that as a given, right? And maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should, make sure that
take
people
it as a given that you want the will of God as the first thing.
Exactly.
What else do you want?
But what else do you want? Yeah. Like, what are the things that you're trying to possess? What are the things that if they were to present to you 10 options and you see it, like, it's going to capture your eye, and it's going to, you're going to want to do everything and anything to get that.
Yeah, I think everybody would have a list. It's not bad to have a list.
And I don't think it is bad, and I think I actually encourage people to try to write things down. In fact, when it comes to anything, I wish people would write things down more, right? Because man, God speaks to you, and you should write that down. Like, you should literally, hey man, you feel like you write it down. You don't want to forget these precious things, these precious moments.
You don't want that.
And so I would encourage people to write that down, pray about it. And you know what? There is nothing wrong with getting those things of the world. But I feel as you kind of pray about these things, I feel like God is going to open the right doors for
God's
you.
Going to give you.
And I think that's where it becomes key when you just kind of, your condition is always, si Dios quiere. Your condition is always if God wants, right? It's not if I really want it, but if God wants. Because I feel like you're going to live such, a more happier life, a more satisfied life when you're living according to God's will and not to, anybody else's. Because, wow, it's just, there's that satisfaction. Abraham, I think you say it always, like, man, if you lose a job, you're not going to get mad at the person who fired you. You're just going to go to God and be like, God, I don't have this job anymore.
Yeah, you took away my job.
You're going to go to him and be like, okay, so now where else? Where are you taking me next? And I feel like there's so much satisfaction and so much peace that we can get when we're living for Christ.
That's right. You have to be content with what you have, even though you aspire to having more. Like, I would like to own my own private jet one day, but you have to be content with what you have, right? But I'm not going to be like, oh, I want to have a private jet. I want my son to play in the NBA. Like, I'm going to put him in training camps and do whatever I can do. And if he gets drafted, that's going to be like a crazy day. Like, we'll do a crazy party. But like, if he does, like, I'm not gonna pressure him.
Episode 2000, we got NBA superstar.
Yeah, like, and if he doesn't make it, like, I mean, everybody, like, I wanted to play. Every Dominican wants to play Major League Baseball to some extent.
Yeah,
I played
for so many
up
years.
to middle, like, up to like I was 16, 17, and then I just left it. He might just leave it and say, I don't want to play basketball or any sport anymore. Fine, no problem. But what I'm saying is that you can want things, but you have to be able to control those wants, and you have to be able to say, listen, I'm going to be content with what the Lord has provided. That's it.
Can we get to that? That's the question that we got, y'all. And that's
it's not difficult. And you know what? At the house, training for kids from young to not be vain in this respect helps a lot, right? Not giving them everything they want, not giving them all this other stuff. And, talking about, my dad's got the money and all that other stuff. Like, no.
Yeah.
No, you get what you need. And then, you can get some wants for birthdays or Christmas or whatever, but you can't spoil a kid to the point where, he's going to do whatever to get what he needs after. Like you can't do that. Don't raise, and I don't want to call no names, but don't raise no Kardashians. So that's all I'm gonna say. People who want everything. You can't want everything. That's the lust of the eyes.
Listen, guys, leave us any comments if you have any questions. We love to hear as well. I mean, we get it outside from these comments as well. Reach out to us and let us know what kind of conversations you guys want us to have. Because we have a list of things still that we want to get through and talk about. But hey, if there's something hot that you want us to tackle, we would love to have a conversation on it because, this is what we're doing, right? We're just doing community here. Right. Every time we have this show, what we try to, at least we try. I know sometimes it gets so hot and we maybe forget, but we definitely want to let anybody know that, we're coming at this from the Christian perspective because we truly believe that God created this world, that God sent His Son for us to save us, man, to save us from those sins that we've committed, from all those things that we have fallen in. If you're listening to us and you are feeling like you are imperfect, like you are weak, don't worry about that. God has come to save you.
That's right.
And so God's arms are wide open. You will not experience a love like His, and His grace and mercy, it surpasses anything that you can think of. So Abraham, man, any last comments, any last words, man?
I was just going to say, speaking of the loss of the eyes and, going back to the men and women thing, one of these days, guys, we're going to tackle a long distance relationship. Is it feliz a los cuatro, or does this actually work? Long distance, long distance relationship.
Man, long distance relationship.
Does it actually work? Like,
I have an experience in my life, but it was,
I have one too, and for me, it worked out. It's good. So let's see if it works out for everybody. Soon we're going to talk about that. But yes, if you don't know Jesus Christ, accept Him today as your Lord and Savior. He is the only way, and stay off that Starbucks, man. Just go to Tim Hortons, buy a $2 Tim Hortons, drink the coffee, stop walking around with a Starbucks cup full of water, talking about my chai latte. I don't know why I always keep. That's the only drink
bro. Okay, but what about like when it comes to like the organic foods and like the whole foods and like food that just comes like straight from like the farm? Like, are you more inclined to have that food though because it's more expensive? And like this is a question that we'll ask once we have the nutritionist on the show.
If I find it, I buy it. It depends on what it is. But like there's some organic bananas that is like $3.99 a pound when the regular banana is 56 cents a pound. A blessed original banana is just as good as an organic banana.
I don't know, man. Sometimes I fall for it, man. I was like, you know what, organic. I'm trying to take care of myself.
I get it. Organic stuff is good, but you just
could be the lust of the eyes though there too, right? Because we're trying to.
It could be. It's not always available. It's not always available. You get it if it's available, but it's pretty expensive. Like if you have a big family, it gets expensive by all these things, and not everything is available. Like I can't find no Dominican product that's organic. I haven't found no organic plátano in this country, so I don't know if there is any. So I just buy the regular stuff.
That is true. Well, y'all, this has been the Bendito Show. Thank you so much. Tune in on Thursday, 9:09 p.m. Have a blessed night.
Take it easy.
Man, I never thought about that, man. Organic plátanos.
They don't have any of this. So I'm telling you, anything you buy has a tag 4 on it. That's not organic.